My name's Jessica. I'm 24 years old. Life is very hard for me right now. I am a waitress in a busy cafe in the city. Every day, I work long hours. I always have sore feet, and I am usually very tired when I finish my work. I don't have a lot of money, and I worry about my future a lot. I live in a very small house with 10 other people. It is a busy place. There's always mess. There's always noise. I get awfully lonely in that house. I have no family to talk to as they told me to leave home many years ago. I feel like I am all alone in this big, loud world. One rainy Tuesday, an old man came into the cafe. He took a chair at my table and ordered breakfast. He ate his food very slowly. He looked like a good person, but he looked very sad. When he had to pay the bill, he looked at me with tired eyes. He didn't have any cash for a tip. His face was guilty. He took a scrap of paper from his pocket. It was a lottery ticket. He said he was sorry he didn't have any money to give me. In exchange, he asked me to take his lottery ticket. I looked at the old man and pitied him as well. I took the ticket with a smile. I didn't think the ticket was anything special. I never believed in luck, never played the lottery. I took it because I wanted to be nice. I put the ticket in my pocket and forgot it. Then I went back to work and continued waiting on the other customers. That night, I returned to my crowded room. I was so tired and sad. I thought about my life and wondered if it would be better. I never knew this little piece of paper would change everything for me so soon. I was just a girl, working in a cafe, just trying to survive in a city that didn't seem to care about me. I sat on my bed and thought of the old man. I wished he would have a better day tomorrow. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep with dreams of a quiet and happy life. The following week, I sat alone on the floor of my crowded room. The house was very loud, so I went to a corner to be by myself. I took out my phone to check the lottery numbers. I glanced at the screen. Then I looked at the little piece of paper in my hand. I looked again, and then a third time. My heart just stopped. My ticket matched every number exactly. I just sat there in stunned disbelief. I had won $2 million. My hands were shaking as I looked at the ticket. I was happy, but I was frightened very much. I knew $2 million was a life-changing amount of money. I thought about my roommates and the people I worked with. Would they treat me differently if they found out? I thought I had to be very careful. I folded the ticket up carefully and tucked it inside my left shoe. I pushed the shoe far under my bed where no one would see it. I could not sleep that night at all. I stayed up and watched the door, afraid somebody would come and take my secret from me. The morning after, I went to the main lottery office in town. It was a big building and very formal. I talked to a woman behind a big desk. She looked at my ticket and her eyes grew round. She said I was the winner of the grand prize. Indeed, relief washed over me. But then she had some bad news for me. There was a hard rule for winners of this amount, she said. I had to sign a paper and take a professional picture for the local news. I told her I didn't want to be a news story. I just wanted to be quiet and private about my life. But the woman shook her head. It was the law, she said, and I had no choice. My stomach knotted. I knew when my face was on TV, everything was going to change. I agreed to the photo, but was very nervous upon leaving the office. I walked slowly home, wondering how I could keep my new life safe from the world. I won the lottery, and my life changed very quickly and not for the better. Before the news, my roommates hardly ever talked to me. We lived in a small, messy apartment, and everyone was usually too busy with their own problems. But then I was on TV, and that changed everything. When I got to the door that evening, all 10 of my roommates were waiting for me in the living room. They sat upon the old sofa and looked at me with strange, bright eyes. They were very kind at first. They told me how proud they were of me for my success. But it was not long before their true feelings appeared. One girl, who usually brushed me aside, got up and came over to me. She slung her arm over my shoulder and smiled a very cold smile. She said she had a problem, and we were best friends. She asked me for $5,000 to pay her old debt. Another roommate came to me soon. He told me he needed a new car to get a better job and asked me if I could buy it for him. I was very uncomfortable. I was no longer a human being to them. I felt like a piece of meat to be carved up and shared. I felt bad, so I gave them some money thinking it would make them happy and stop the requests. I was mistaken. They wanted a great deal more the next day. They all saw what I did. If I went to the kitchen to make coffee, someone followed me asking for money. If I went to the bathroom, they waited outside the door to talk about their financial problems. There was no privacy whatsoever. I began to see the reality of the people around me. They didn't consider my feelings, or my tiredness from work, or my fear of the future. Nobody asked me how I was, or if I was happy. They just wanted to know how much money I had. Their smiles were fake, and they were only interested in me for the $2 million. I was with people, but I felt very lonely. I had to run but didn't know where to run to or who to trust. I was still hiding from my roommates when my phone went off. It was an unknown number, but I still answered. To my complete astonishment, it was my mother. I hadn't spoken to her in 6 years. We had a very rocky relationship, and when I was younger, she told me to get out of her house. Now her voice was soft and gentle. She told me she missed me a lot and wanted to have dinner with me. I wanted to believe her. My heart felt a great empty space where my family should be. I thought I would give them another try. I came to their house with hope in my heart. Their welcome was smiling and warm and hug-filled. My mom made a beautiful meal, and for a few hours, I felt like I finally had a place to belong. We discussed the old days and reminisced over past stories. I began to think things were getting better, but by the time we were done, the mood shifted. My father cleared his throat and put a piece of paper on the table. It was a deed to a very expensive house he wanted to buy. He looked at me very seriously and said that, since I was rich now, I had a responsibility to look after my family. He thought I should pay for everything. My chest felt like it was on fire. My mother's smile faded, and she waited for my reply. I looked at their faces. I saw the truth. They invited me to dinner, not because they loved me, not because they wanted to be a family again. They just wanted me back for my money. It broke my heart. I had been so lonely for so many years. I wanted to trust them, but I could see they saw me as a bank account, not a daughter. I got up and said that I could not help them with this request. Their faces turned cold right away. They were no longer sweet. They were yelling at me. I saw my own family was just like my roommates. They only cared about the $2 million. I walked home from their house feeling lonelier than I had ever felt in my life. I knew I had to get away from the city and find a life far away from those who wanted my wealth. After I left my parents' house, I sobbed for hours. I was lonely and very sad. My family and roommates viewed me as a bank account. I knew I couldn't stay in the city any longer. I was tired of the noise of the cars and the crowds. I wanted to be anywhere but where I knew anyone. I chose to gather my belongings and abandon everything else. I shoved my clothes into one little bag and got in my car. I drove 6 hours out of the city lights. I wanted somewhere that felt quiet and safe. Finally, I came to a pretty small town by a blue lake. The air was fresh and clean, and the people were very friendly. I found a little farm for sale on the edge of the woods. There was a wooden house and a big garden. I knew immediately this was the place for me. I bought the property with the money I had won. I decided to change my appearance to keep my secret. I went to a salon in the next town and cut my long hair. I dyed it a darker color too. I stopped buying expensive clothes and bought simple shirts and jeans from a local shop. Now I looked in the mirror, and I didn't see the famous lottery winner. I saw a new person who lived in peace in the country. For the first time in years, my heart felt light. My days were spent learning how to grow flowers and vegetables. In the warm soil, I planted carrots, tomatoes, and green beans. I sat on the porch in the evenings, watching the beautiful sunset over the lake. There were no people coming up to me for money. There were no phones ringing with promises from my family. I felt a great peace in my soul. I realized that I don't have to be a millionaire to be happy. All I needed was a quiet place where I could be me. I woke up each morning smiling. I knew I was finally free of my difficult past. I was no longer the girl who feared the future. I was a farmer, and I loved the simple life. Every morning the sun woke me up, and the air smelled like fresh grass. The work was tough, but it made me feel powerful. One afternoon, a truck pulled up to the gate of my farm. A man came out. He was a carpenter by trade, and his name was Wyatt. I had asked him to come help fix my old wooden fence. When I first saw Wyatt, it was his strong hands and calm, kind smile that caught my eye. He looked at me differently than the people in the city did. He didn't care about my clothes or my hair. He just looked over at the fence, then at me, with a friendly and honest expression. Wyatt worked hard on the repairs all day. He worked and we talked, but he never asked me about my past or why I came to live in this quiet place. He spoke of the beauty of the trees, the ways of the birds, the changing colors of the sky. It was a comfort to listen to someone who cared for simple things. It felt like I could finally be myself for the first time in a long time. A few weeks later, the work was finished, but Wyatt kept on coming. In the evenings, we sat on my wooden porch and watched the stars come out in the dark night sky. We talked about our favorite books and our dreams for the future. It was a warm, quiet night, and we were laughing at some funny story when he stopped. He looked me straight in the eyes and leaned forward. He gave me a soft kiss. For the first time in a very long time, I felt a deep sense of peace. I didn't feel like a woman with $2 million or a person with a secret. I felt like a normal woman who was safe now. I realized I had been running away for a long time, but with Wyatt, I wanted to be settled. He was a good man. For many months, life in the small town was perfect. I had no fear as I walked through the streets. I enjoyed the simple work on my farm. I felt like another person. I was no longer the girl who had $2 million. I was just Jessica, the woman who lived at the end of the road. But secrets don't stay secret forever. One sunny afternoon, I went to the local grocery store to buy bread and milk. The shop was full of people from the town. While I was in line, an older woman approached me. She stopped and looked at my face for a long moment. Then she took an old folded newspaper out of her bag. She gasped loudly and told everyone to look at the front page. It was a photo of me from the lottery office. The woman looked at the paper and then at me. She yelled to everyone in the store. She said I was the lottery winner from the news. The store went quiet. Everybody was looking at me. I felt my face flush. I heard whispers about my name and the $2 million. It was suddenly like being back in the big city. My heart was beating very fast. I didn't buy my groceries. I dropped my basket on the floor and ran out of the store as fast as I could. I ran all the way back to my farm and locked the door. I sat in my kitchen and cried for a long while. I was frightened. I thought Wyatt would feel differently about me. I thought he would think I was a stranger. I thought he would think I had lied to him. I felt my peaceful life was about to come to an end. That night I heard a knock at the door. It was Wyatt. His eyes were serious, but he looked calm. He came in the kitchen and saw the old newspaper on my table. He picked it up, looked at the photo, then looked at my face. There was a long silence in the room. Then he sat next to me and took a deep breath. He asked me about my past in a soft voice. He asked if this was why I was so quiet and why I moved to this town. I didn't know what to say. I was afraid of losing the only person who made me feel safe. I sat at the table with Wyatt and told him the whole truth about my life. I told him about my old crowded room and the people who wanted my money. I told him that when I won the lottery, I didn't feel happy. I felt lonely. I told him why I had run away to this quiet town. I was afraid he would see me differently now that he knew the truth. Wyatt listened to every word carefully. When I finished, he took my hands in his. Gently, he told me he didn't care about the $2 million. He said the only woman he cared about was the one who worked the farm and watched sunsets with him. He loved me for my soul, not my bank account. In that moment, I finally understood something very important. Money is just paper. It can buy a big house, but not a home and not real love. I felt the weight lift from my heart. I decided to change how I used my money. I didn't want to hide it anymore, but I didn't want it to control my life either. I began to spend my money to help the people of my new town. I gave money to the local school so the children could get new books. I also helped poor families who lived near the lake. Helping others made me feel better than having millions of dollars in my name. The morning after Wyatt's visit, Jessica woke up very early. The sun was soft and orange outside the window. Birds sang in the tall tree by the porch. She lay in bed and listened. She felt something new in her chest. It was warm and quiet. She smiled at the ceiling. She got up and made coffee. She stood at the kitchen window. The garden looked beautiful in the morning light. The tomatoes were red. The green beans were tall. She felt proud of her work. Wyatt came to the farm that morning. He knocked softly on the door. Jessica opened it and saw his face. He looked tired but kind. He held 2 cups of coffee from the town shop. He handed one to Jessica. She took it with both hands. They stood at the door together. Neither of them spoke for a moment. The air was cool and fresh. A bird called from the tall tree. Jessica looked at Wyatt. Wyatt looked at Jessica. Then they both smiled. They sat on the old wooden steps of the porch. The grass was wet with morning dew. The sky was pale blue. Wyatt put his cup down on the step. He looked at his hands. Then he spoke in a quiet voice. He said he thought about her story all night. He said he felt sad for her. He said nobody should feel alone in that way. She looked at the garden. A small bird landed on the fence. It looked around and flew away again. She watched it go. She said she was sorry she did not tell him the truth before. She said she was afraid. She said she did not want to lose this life. Wyatt nodded slowly. He picked up his cup and took a slow sip. Then he said something she did not expect. He said he was glad she came to this town. He said the town was better with her in it. He said he was better with her in his life. Jessica felt her eyes get wet. She blinked fast. She did not want to cry again, but the tears came anyway. She wiped them away with the back of her hand. Wyatt saw this. He did not say anything. He just moved a little closer to her on the step. They sat together for a long time. The sun moved higher in the sky. The dew dried on the grass. A car passed on the road. A dog barked somewhere far away. Jessica felt something settle inside her. It was like a door closing softly, not a door that shut her out, a door that kept her safe inside. A few days passed. Life on the farm continued. Jessica worked in the garden every morning. She pulled the weeds. She watered the plants. The work was simple, but it made her feel strong. But the town knew her secret now. When she walked to the market, people looked at her. Some smiled, some whispered. A few people came up to her with questions. They were not mean, but they were curious. Jessica answered them kindly. She kept her words short. She said she was happy to live in this town. She said she loved the farm and the quiet life. Most people in the town were good. They accepted her answer and went on with their day. This town was different from the city. The people here did not ask for money. They asked about her garden. They asked how the tomatoes were growing. One old woman named Mrs. Clara lived next to the lake. She had a small white house with blue shutters. She always wore a yellow apron. She grew roses in her front garden. Every time Jessica walked past, Mrs. Clara waved from the yard. One afternoon, Mrs. Clara called to her from the gate. She said she heard Jessica help the school with new books. She said the children were very happy. She said that was a very kind thing to do. Jessica stopped at the gate. She looked at the old woman's warm face. She said it was nothing big. She said she just wanted the children to have good books. Mrs. Clara shook her head slowly. She said, "Small things are never nothing." She said every kind act makes the world a little better. Jessica thought about those words for a long time. One quiet evening, Jessica sat alone on her porch. The sun was going down over the lake. The sky was orange and pink and purple. She held a cup of warm tea. She thought about the old man from the cafe, the man who gave her the lottery ticket. She thought about him often. She never knew his name. She never saw him again. But he changed her whole life with one small piece of paper. She wondered if he was okay. She wondered if he had a warm place to sleep. The next morning, Jessica made a decision. She drove back to the city. She went to the old cafe where she used to work. The cafe smelled the same: coffee and toast and warm bread. Her old boss stood behind the counter. He looked up and saw her face. His eyes went wide. He said her name loudly. He said she looked different with her short hair. Jessica smiled. She sat down at the counter. She ordered a coffee. Then she asked him about the old man, the one who came on a rainy Tuesday, the one who gave her a lottery ticket instead of a tip. Her boss thought for a moment, then he nodded slowly. He said he remembered that man. He said his name was Harold. He said Harold came to the cafe every Tuesday for years. He said Harold stopped coming after that rainy day. Jessica held her cup tight. She asked if he knew where Harold lived. Her boss went to a back room. He came back with an old notebook. He found a page and wrote down an address on a small piece of paper. Jessica took the paper. She thanked him. She left the cafe and walked to the address. It was a small gray building on a quiet street. The paint on the door was old. There were flower pots by the steps, but the flowers were dead. Jessica knocked on the door. A long moment passed. Then the door opened. Harold stood there. He was older than she remembered. His back was more bent. His eyes were cloudy. He wore a brown wool sweater. He looked at her face. He did not recognize her at first. Then his eyes changed. He looked again. He said her name in a very soft voice. He asked if it was her. Jessica nodded. She felt her throat get tight. She said yes, it was her. Harold's eyes got wet. He pressed his hand to his mouth. He stood very still in the doorway. Jessica told him she came to say thank you. She said his ticket changed her life. She said she wanted him to know that. Harold shook his head slowly. He said he thought the ticket was worthless. He said he just wanted to give her something. He said she was kind to him that day. Jessica remembered. She remembered how tired he looked. She remembered his guilty face. She remembered how she smiled and took the ticket. She reached into her bag. She took out an envelope. She held it out to Harold. He looked at it. He did not take it at first. He asked what it was. She said it was money. Not a huge amount. Just enough for him to live more comfortably. She said he deserved a warm home and good food. Harold looked at the envelope for a long time. His hand shook a little. Then he took it. He held it against his chest. He said he did not know what to say. His voice broke a little. Jessica reached out and held his old hand. She said he did not need to say anything. She said she was just happy to see him well. They stood together in the doorway for a quiet moment. The city was loud around them. Cars moved on the road. People walked past on the pavement. But in that small doorway, everything felt still. Harold smiled at her. It was the first real smile she ever saw on his face. It changed everything in his old, tired eyes. He looked lighter. Jessica smiled back. She said goodbye. She walked back to her car. She sat in the driver's seat for a moment. She looked at the gray building. She saw Harold's shadow in the window. He was watching her leave. She put the car in drive. She drove out of the city and back to her farm, back to her garden, and her quiet lake and her wooden porch. That night, Wyatt came over for dinner. Jessica made a simple meal, rice and vegetables and warm bread. They sat at the small kitchen table. A candle gave soft light. Outside, the stars were bright. Wyatt asked about her day. He asked where she went. Jessica told him about Harold. She told him about the visit. She told him about the envelope. Wyatt listened. He looked at her with kind eyes. He did not interrupt. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said just one thing. He said she had a good heart. Jessica looked at her plate. She felt something warm spread through her. Not the warmth of money or success, the warmth of being truly known by another person. She said she was not sure about that. She said she just wanted to do the right thing. Wyatt reached across the table. He put his hand over hers. He said that was exactly the point. They finished dinner in comfortable silence. The candle burned low. The stars outside the window were very bright. An owl called from the trees. Jessica washed the dishes. Wyatt dried them. They worked side by side in the small kitchen. The water was warm. The kitchen smelled of soap and bread. It was such a simple moment, but Jessica held it carefully in her heart. This was what she always wanted. Not the money, not the big lottery win. This, right here. A warm kitchen, a kind man, a quiet night. Months passed. The garden grew tall and full. The tomatoes turned deep red. The beans filled their pods. The flowers along the fence bloomed in yellow and white and soft purple. Jessica sold vegetables at the town market on Saturday mornings. People from the town came and smiled and asked how the farm was going. She smiled back and told them. She did not feel afraid anymore. She did not hide her face or her story. She was Jessica. She lived on the farm by the lake. She grew vegetables and helped the school and sat on her porch in the evenings with Wyatt. That was enough. That was everything. One Saturday morning at the market, a young girl stopped at her table. She was about 10 years old. She had long dark hair and a very serious face. She held a coin in her small hand. She looked at the tomatoes. She looked at the price card. She looked at her coin. It was not enough. Jessica watched her. She remembered that feeling. Not having enough, wanting something small and simple and not being able to have it. She picked up one tomato. She handed it to the girl. She said it was a gift. She said no payment needed. The girl looked up. Her serious face changed. She smiled a big, bright smile. She said thank you very quietly. Then she ran back to her mother. Jessica watched her go. She felt a quiet joy in her chest. Mrs. Clara stood at the next table. She saw everything. She looked at Jessica and nodded with a warm smile. Jessica nodded back. She thought about the old man Harold. She thought about the rainy Tuesday in the cafe. She thought about one small act of kindness. One old lottery ticket. How it changed one whole life. She thought about the girl with the tomato, about that one small moment. She hoped it meant something good for that child one day. That evening, Jessica sat alone on her porch. The sun went down behind the hill. The lake turned gold. The sky turned pink. Frogs sang by the water. A cool wind moved through the tall grass. She thought about the girl she used to be, the tired waitress in the crowded city, the girl who lived in a small room with 10 other people, the girl who cried herself to sleep from loneliness. She felt something soft for that girl, not shame, something closer to kindness. That girl worked very hard. That girl kept going on hard days. That girl smiled at an old sad man and took a worthless piece of paper. That girl did good things without knowing it. And now that girl was here, on this porch, in this quiet place, with a full heart. Wyatt walked up the path from the road. He had a small bundle of wildflowers in his hand, yellow ones from the field near his house. He smiled when he saw her on the porch. She stood up to meet him. He handed her the flowers. She held them and breathed in their soft smell. He sat down next to her. They looked at the lake together. Neither of them spoke for a while. The frogs kept singing. A star appeared in the pale sky. then another, then many more. Jessica held the yellow flowers in her lap. She felt the warm evening air on her face. She heard Wyatt breathe slowly beside her. She closed her eyes for just a moment. She felt it clearly, that quiet thing she spent her whole life looking for, peace, real peace. Not the peace of money, not the peace of running away, the peace of knowing who you are. The peace of being loved for exactly that. She opened her eyes. The stars were bright now. The lake was silver. The frogs were loud and happy in the dark. She was not afraid of tomorrow. She was not sad about yesterday. She was only here, only now, and that was more than enough. I am 25 years old now. I am not the frightened girl who lived in a crowded room. I have a little farm, a beautiful garden, and a good man who loves me every day. I am no longer afraid of the future. The past is behind me. I have found the life I always wanted. I am at peace. I have a reason, and most importantly, I have a happy heart.